Greetings, everyone. I am here in a very unique circumstance, as my room is now my office, and I'm not making a video from my phone, because today's episode is about the distinguishing features between nationalism and patriotism. I have two sources that I will be pulling from, as well as a definition that I have looked at and verified that it makes sense and is accurate. Now, first off, if you don't know me, I'm the owner of the YouTube channel Team UA. It's dedicated to video games with my friend from Ukraine, as well as dedicated to sharing and highlighting facts and truth in the Ukraine conflict, the war that Russia has brought on to Ukraine. But here we're going to be talking about a more focused issue, nationalism and patriotism. So a lot of people have a strange understanding of this word. It seems to be ambiguous or interchangeable, which is not the case. As a political scientist as myself and as many other scholars have come to this conclusion that they're not the same. Now, I won't make this long and drawn out, but generally speaking, as I have found, that the two terms themselves are not close to each other's in their inception. 1720 was the original found of this word patriotism. It was created, it was coined at this time. Nationalism took another 110 years to be coined. Came about in 1830, around the rise of European colonialism. And this was the driving force. But let's get back to the point. Nationalism is not patriotism, and patriotism is not nationalism. How can that be? Well, a definition that I will pull here, and then I will go to sources to verify my definition. Nationalism is the devotion and loyalty to one's own country. The doctrine of asserting the interests of one's own nation, viewed as separate from the interests of other nations or the international community. As well, sentiment based on common cultural characteristics that binds a population and often produces a policy of separatism or isolation. Now, here you have this idea that it's about the nation, it's loyalty to the nation, it's a loyalty to a certain bound set of characteristics that the population has. It is in the interest of the nations, so it's not related to external issues or international community. So you have this isolation already in here. And at the same time, it's kind of like America First, which was the fascist motto during World War I and World War II, where they tried to overthrow our U.S. government with fascists to help the German nation and help us not go into war. But if you don't believe me, you can look those facts up. Now, on the other hand, patriotism, though, has the similar meaning, devoted, like devotion, but instead it's devoted love and support in defense of one's country. National loyalty, which is, you see a little distinction, concern for its defense, its way of life, as well, values individual rights, especially constitutional rights. So there is a distinction between individual rights versus a collective, this collective bound cultural characteristics of nationalism. So let's now look at a definition that Timothy Snyder brings with him on the book on tyranny, 20 lessons from the 20th century. The president is a nationalist, quote, which is not all that same as a patriot. Nationalist encourages us to be our worst and tells us that we are our best. A nationalist, quote, although endlessly brooding on power, victory, defeat, revenge, wrote Orwell, tends to be uninterested only in the truth, is resentment we feel when we contemplate others. So I'll go back. Is Orwell wrote, tends to be uninterested in what happens in the real world. My mistake, I read that wrong. Nationalism is reactivist, since the only truth is the resentment we feel when we contemplate others. So others and us and them. As the novelist Danlo Keys put it, nationalism has no universal values, aesthetic or ethical. So on the other hand, a patriot, not a nationalist, by contrast, wants the nation to live up to its ideals, which means asking us to be our best selves. A patriot must be concerned with the real world, which is the only place where his country can be loved and sustained. A patriot has universal values, individual rights, as I said before, stands by which he judges his nation, always wishing it well, and wishing that it would do better. Okay, so that is what a nationalist and a patriot is. A patriot is positive, wants to see good things happen, is not discouraging or debasing his own nation, not saying that we are the worst and then at the same time we are really great, but we can only be great if we do what I say. There we have a dictator move like Trump or Putin or Xi Jinping and other people as well. On the other hand, you have this really weird Christian view, which I have the feeling is Christian nationalism. But here we go. They try to distinguish and make it seem like nationalism is okay. Patriotism is a sentiment. Nationalism, at its most basic level, is a political ideology. Christians can and should embrace both as long as they are defined rightly, ordered well, and do so in a biblically informed fashion. Quote William Wolfe from standingforfreedom.com. So you have this unique situation here where you have someone thinking that it's okay to have both and really doesn't distinguish them too much. The website goes into more detail. And on the other side, you have this idea that nation first, everyone else second. The definition from Timothy Snyder and most other people, including the dictionary, defines nationalism as a man who loves his nation first, does not concern himself with the Constitution, and does not have positive things to think about his country because it sucks and I alone can make it better. They do not concern themselves with what's going on in the international community, which is nearly impossible now, or even in the past, if you go back in history, that countries did better and strived and were more successful when they interacted with their community around them, the international community, with trade and otherwise. But the other side would suggest that it's okay as long as you do it in a religious fashion. Nationalism is okay. Now, we have this issue with white Christian nationalism, which is now the guise of white supremacy. They believe that as long as Christians perform nationalism, it's okay. As long as they do so in a biblical way, which doesn't make sense because there's nothing in the Bible that talks about nationalism or patriotism. It doesn't talk about any politics or government outside of some things, but I'm not going into those because they're not relevant to this topic. So I want you guys to understand that, sure, people might think nationalism is great because it's about the nation, but it's isolationist at its foremost. It is talking about the country is bad, it has problems, but at the same time, everything is great. You guys just be your best. But you can't have both ways. You can't have it where you hate your country and at the same time think that you guys can go out there and do your best. What you want to do is, as a patriot, is to wish your country well. Judge your country, but also wish it to do better, because it can never be just good enough. Every day we have to strive to be better. So nationalism is this notion that has come around in history, if you listen to Timothy Snyder, where nothing good has happened. We have Hitler, we have Putin, we have Stalin, we have Xi Jinping. We have all these different people who are nationalists. Netanyahu. All these people tend to want to control everyone and tell them that they know how to fix the country, and only they can. This magical ability to fix stuff, but at the same time degrade us, to tell us that we're not good and this country is horrible. But only he can fix it. He's not concerned about anything at all. He's concerned about himself. And the, quote, common cultural characteristics that bind the population, but in this case is a population that is specific because it is asserting the interests of one's own nation and is separate from other interests. So you have this closed or exclusive nature and inclusive on the other side. You can't have a nation of only certain groups and exclude the others, because then you're not going to have a healthy country. You're going to have a lot of strife. So I hope this made sense. If you guys have any questions about this video or concerns or want more information, please let me know. This type of stuff is very important to understand, because right now the rhetoric coming out during election time is simply one which is for the Constitution, patriots, people who want to protect the Constitution before anything else, and people who want to degrade the nation but also say that they can fix it, that they alone can fix the nation, and America is great, and only America is great, and other countries are bad countries, or other countries are our enemy, or countries that want to help other countries, and in the defense of the international community are also enemies. So these others versus us, this type of mentality, this nationalistic mentality, is a fascist mentality. If you don't believe me, go all the way back to World War II and look into what nations implemented a nationalistic strategy or use nationalistic movements in the defense of their own interests, at the same time hurting and attacking and destroying outside countries because they were threats to their own national interests. Now, national interest, again, is a very selective cultural community, a group. So they're not talking about the whole nation. They're talking about nation as they see it, embodied in their own view, their own interest, nation view. Hitler did this, and even examples of other countries that did it all ended up with murder of other people, the removal of people's citizenship, stateless nations in World War II, with Czechoslovakia, Poland, the Baltic states, Ukraine. This nationalism drove the fear of Jews in World War II as well. And you're finding that here now, this using it against trans and gays and other groups that do not fit nicely into this category for the nationalists. These people are not in the cultural characteristically common interest of these people, so they're outsiders, so they must be deemed enemies. So this all wraps up into a nice little box. We have an issue where we have nationalists fighting patriots in our country. Nationalists are not patriots, and you will find out that the nationalists, which is the former president and his MAGA group, are trying to persuade you with this Christianity concept of nationalism, to say that it's okay as long as you use it in a biblical way. But there is no way to use it biblically, because Hitler even too used it biblically, and you see what he did. On the other side, no matter if you like him or not, you have Joe Biden, who is trying to protect the Constitution, along with not just Democrats, but other former Republicans who also see the Constitution under threat. So they want to protect the international community because it makes us stronger, makes us better when we interact with other people. So using the idea of loving and supporting and devoting yourself to the country and to the Constitution, but not at the risk of other people, but instead to include others and to protect everyone's individual rights instead of just looking at it as a group. So that is my summation of this. I will try to put out another video in due time talking about other issues that are affecting us as a nation to get us on the healthy path towards saving the Constitution, saving democracy, and saving the international world order, which protects democracies and the rule of law. Thank you, and have a wonderful day.